All right, I'm going to kick us off. And thank you too for joining me and being here live. And hopefully over the months, this will grow into a fun little community and we'll get to do this once a month. I really have been toying around with this idea for a long time. So I think it'll be fun. And hopefully we'll get more and more people here live. And I know we'll have some good conversations and whatnot as we go. I want to let you know that you're welcome to ask questions anytime. The idea of the Red Tent is that it's a space for learning. It's a space for growing, for sharing stories, for just being heard, as much as offering your own stories and your own wisdom. So this is really a circle, a round table, and not just a workshop or a class. But I think that's kind of fun, and some of the best Red Tents that at least the ones I've enjoyed, have had kind of a learning aspect to them. So I thought that we could kick off our very first Red Tent with a little bit of history of the Red Tent and how it got started. I'm going to do a little incense sliding. This is a Buddhist temple incense. Just a little something to kind of bring the ceremony to a starting point. So Red Tents historically have been a place that women have come together, a place that women have gathered, and they've had a lot of different names around the world. Moon lodges in Native American tradition is one that here in the States is very well known, I guess. Maybe not quite as well as the idea of the Red Tent, since there's been so many books published with that name, but that's a really popular one, the Sweat Lodge. But there's been some kind of gathering place that women have come to in all traditions and all societies around the world. And the time that women bled was sacred, and it's been considered sacred up until the patriarchal takeover of society. Even when it wasn't necessarily a matriarchy, even just tribes that had a wise woman and a leader, a male leader, two very equal positions, still had this space for women when they bled. And it's something that we've lost along the lines. There's a lot of ways that we've lost it, and creating the taboo around menstruation and taking it away from us as a time of celebration and a time of renewal and reflection and recharging, and turning it into a time of discomfort and disease and disgust and shame and embarrassment is harmful for us as women. And not just on a casual level. It's not just harmful because we don't know what's going on with us, and we don't know what's going on with us hormonally or emotionally or what's happening in our own bodies. But it's harmful for us on a really base level. We spend on average over 6 years of our life bleeding, just in our period, having our period. We have a long time. Over 6 years of our lives is spent with this time, in this period time. So, if you think about 6 years of your life being spent directly feeling negatively about your body, even if it's just a feeling of inconvenience, it's a negative feeling. And how can we really, truly love our bodies and love the skin we're in and love being a woman and love just our own selves, let alone our sisters, when we spend over 6 years of our lives miserable or isolated or feeling shameful or embarrassed or inconvenienced, or at worst being in a lot of pain or being very under the effects of mood swings and PMS, feeling exhausted and wiped out and feeling less than, whatever the end of that sentence is, but less than. there's just not really a way to do that. And bringing back the power that is in our period and having these spaces of community where we can grow and share are essential to growing that power and growing that feeling in ourselves as women. The taboo itself was really started through religion. It was the religions that declared women unclean and dirty and set up systems like in India where you are untouchable during this time, or the burning times and the times of murdering women as witches, and that enforced this thought that women were dirty or unclean, when in fact menstrual blood is really quite renewing. It's actually full of stem cells and healing properties. So, they couldn't have known that back in the day, but women did know that before these taboos were put into place. And if you look into the mythologies that come from before, around the world, there are stories of the goddesses giving warriors or gods or injured men their menstrual blood to heal. They give it back to the earth to heal. There's even a prophecy that once all of the women of the world are again returning their blood to the earth, there will be no more war. The earth will not need the blood spilt. So there's, from the dawn of time, stories of how healing menstrual blood is, and it's that fear of the unknown that had turned it into this dirty idea. The burning times, when we were hunting women as witches, there was a book published called the Malleus Maleficarum, which is the witch hammer. And it's actually a book on how to torture women to get them to admit that they are witches. In that book, it actually gives lots of examples and illustrated pictures of how to torture women. And that book actually is responsible for the death of around 9 million women. So for over the course of 200 years, between two continents, the Europe as it is and the United States, 9 million women were murdered as witches. That's a lot of damage to our genetic history. And we do know through science that you are handed down through your genes emotional stress responses. So it's been studied through Holocaust survivors and their families that through epigenetics, they're handing down anxiety and depression to their children from being in, and then their grandchildren and so on and so forth, from being in such a stressful place, like the concentration camps. That was a short period of history. It was a horrible 6 million people murdered. And this was very similar, just over a longer period of time. So many more generations living in fear and being tortured. In the Malleus Maleficarum, it actually says if a woman, after being thoroughly tortured to the point of death, still does not admit to being a witch, that she must then be incarcerated for a year, visited upon, especially during high holy days, and additionally tortured and questioned. So it even says that you can bring a woman to the point of death through pain and torture and still keep her alive for another year of it, just to be sure. And then you can go ahead and murder her. The thing about that is that the church got the woman's the property, the family, anything that the family had. So it was really a money-making business for them. And while these particular monks that wrote this book seem to particularly enjoy torturing women, and that seems to be what they got off on, the church enjoyed the financial gain from it. So it was very much a reinforced idea of women being dirty. And they spoke in that book often about how the opening of the womb was the mouth of the devil, and it led to the gates of hell, and basically making anything related to woman a torture hell landscape. So you can imagine that any kind of bleeding that women did was considered completely abnormal and part of the death and the taboo. So we ended up with this taboo because women spent 200 years afraid to speak to each other about this process. Women were killed as witches for being herbalists, for being midwives, for healing. If you came to a woman and said, oh man, I'm not feeling well, and she gave you herbs, she was a witch, and now you were a part of the coven. Women were at one time celebrating their lives together and mourning their losses together. And this taboo forced women to stop speaking to each other. When women gathered, they were labeled a coven and were all slaughtered as witches. So this fear of connection is ingrained in us on a genetic level. But the problem with that is that it's not our stress response. In fact, our stress response as women is fight or flight. Our stress response is not fight or flight. Our stress response is actually tend and befriend. Men have fight or flight as a stress response, and women have tend and befriend. We actually want to gather our friends to take care of each other in times of stress and lean on each other in times of stress. But because we have this taboo and this enforced separation, we don't. So we're actually fighting our own instincts with our own instincts. And it makes a very hard life for women because we're constantly fighting against ourselves. There's really no way to win. In fact, the only way to win is to do the work to get through that isolation and to allow ourselves to celebrate and to mourn and to have friends and to find community. So finding a red tent around you or starting a red tent around you is actually an amazing way to do this. And I do hope that this will grow into being a bigger and a lively group of women doing this kind of virtual connection, this virtual red tent. The red tent is a place that women gathered once a month to bleed, to laugh, to cry, to celebrate, another woman having her very first period, reaching her menarche, and doing a ritual or a celebration for her, for mourning the losses of perhaps miscarriage or the loss of a warrior or the death in the village. Women were really the emotional conduits for the village, and every month we gathered to bleed and release. And we did it for the whole village. So the idea of the red tent as being a place where you can go and be judgment-free, allowed to feel, is kind of a foreign idea to us as women. But it's what they were for, and it's how we used to process, and it's how we got through things, and it's how we got rid of stuff. So I'm really hoping that we can come together and do this red tent thing and have a little bit of maybe information at the beginning and open up the floor to questions and comments and stories, and spend a little bit of time just enjoying each other and each other's company. And I do want to encourage the people who are here live, if you want to speak up or anything, just please feel free to unmute yourself or pop into the chat box and say, hey, I'd like to speak. You're absolutely welcome to. And if you have any questions, please ask questions, because I would love to hear your questions as well. I will go first, as it's usually best to model things. I'm actually on the first day of my bleed, which is early. And I think that's a little bit of the eclipse. But I also think it's kind of fun that I got my period on the first day of the very first red tent that I am holding. So I think that's kind of nice and delightful and fun. I encourage women in the Red Tent to bring a journal, to write down anything that comes to you, to draw it out, color it out, journal it out, whatever it is. I would love to share, sorry about that, my chart. So I've been, I'm charting, and I got the first day of my period, and I woke up this morning. It was the first thing I did was color in my period chart. So I'm really just, and I put a little note in there that it's the first day of my virtual Red Tent. So it's a little like a fun win-win. The importance of the Red Tent, and I thought I would read you guys a little bit of a passage for a little storytelling, is that once upon a time in the Red Tent, women were accepted as being not just the life bringers, but also the death bringers. The women knew what we're very pragmatic, and we knew when it was time to let things go. That's very discouraged in our society now and in ourselves. But once upon a time, it was very much a part of what we did. We brought life, and we allowed things to go when it was time for it to go. We buried our dead, and we were the ones who transitioned our loved ones to the next world. And we are the life, death, life cycle. So in Women That Run With Worlds, she tells the story of Skeleton Woman, who was tossed into the sea by her father for whatever perceived slight. And she sank to the bottom, where she lost all of her flesh and was only bones. And a fisherman went, not knowing that the curse of Skeleton Woman was in this area, and he accidentally caught her while fishing. And he reeled her in and saw the skeleton on the end of his hook, and he was so terrified that he ran away. His boat paddled as quickly as could back to shore, and ran all the way back home to his igloo where he lived. But his line was still attached, and he brought Skeleton Woman home, and she chased him all the way until they were both back into his home. And he saw her there, and eventually his fear was less than his curiosity. And he started to untangle her from his line and untangle her bones and set them all in order. And I've always thought that this is such a beautiful way of describing the Red Tent, as our emotions and our lives and the events that we have lived through are part of our bones, and untangling them in the Red Tent with the help of our sisters is an important part of our lives, and ideally a monthly part of our lives. So I like this process because I think it shows, or this passage from Dr. Este's book, because I think it explains a little bit about it. It is good to make a meditative practice of untangling the life, death, life, nature over and over again. The fisherman sings a little one-song line over and over to aid the untangling. It is a song to help awareness, to help untangle the Skeleton Woman nature. We do not know what he is singing, we can only guess. When we are untangling this nature, it would be good for us to sing something like this. What must I give more death to today in order to generate more life? What do I know should die, but am hesitant to allow to do so? What must die in me in order for me to love? What not beauty do I fear? Of what use is the power of the not beautiful to me today? What should die today? What should live? What life am I afraid to give birth to? If not now, when? And I think those are excellent questions to ask ourselves. And every month, in this Red Tent situation, or even just during your own menstruation and your own bleed, to sit with those questions and journal some things out. What is time to release? What is time to let go? And what is time to love? And by doing these kind of radical acts of self-love and bucking the taboo and really trashing this taboo and diving into this, you are in fact helping end this taboo that has held us separated and isolated for far too many generations. So I thank you, ladies, for being brave and being here. Okay, I'm going to wrap it up, but I would love to open the floor if anyone would like to ask questions or share anything please feel free, and I will be happy to hold the space for you.
Hi, Stasha. It's Stasha here.
I love it.
I was looking at your fan.
Mm-hmm.
I got the book as well.
Nice.
So I'm recording mine. But I have to admit, I always start each fan off on the first day of my bleed.
Yes. Yes,
so
and that's what you're supposed to do.
Okay, so you had marked it out, and then do you mark it out again on the next fan?
So what I did was, because it was my book, I filled in the first fan just to see how it felt and how it, like, what bled through the pages and what didn't. And it's because I wanted women that when they ordered it, I wanted to be able to give them the advice, like use colored pencils, maybe not really like thick markers, that kind of thing. So I'm honestly I'm just trying to get back on track. So I'm filling up my whole fan so that I can get my months. It's because I'm a month ahead in my book.
Okay.
So I'm actually I filled it all the way up last month trying to get back on track. But it is really pretty. Actually, I posted a picture of Instagram of the whole thing.
Oh, that is pretty.
Right? It's just really me experimenting with it and seeing like how it can go. But I did that just because I wanted to get back onto the right dates. So I'm kind of just filling my fan up so that I can be back to the right month, solely because I was using it early in order to make sure that I troubleshot it for the women ordering it. So yeah, you are supposed to start the new fan on the first day of the bleed.
Okay, that's good.
Yeah.
I guess just filling in mine,
Mm-hmm.
I'm just sort of keeping track of the very basic stuff, and then hopefully as time goes on, I'll add a few more of the key things in.
Yeah, perfect.
So now I'm just charting the temperature and where I am, the full moon and the new moon.
Perfect.
And then in the little star where the cervical is, that's actually where I just write the actual date.
Oh, love it.
So I can actually keep track of what day I'm on so I don't get mixed up.
Perfect.
And I guess the other one is at the bottom of where the temperature is, because I don't get that low. I also, for each one, is how many bowel movements I have in a day.
Yeah, perfect.
So
I love it. I love the customization that goes along with this, which is, it's what it's for, to make it work for you. That's great. That's a perfect place to start.
Cool.
Yeah, for sure. It's much easier to start with just a few things and get used to it, and then add in one thing at a time as you get more comfortable.
Good, because I'm on my second one, and I'm like, surely I should have it a bit more under control. Not.
Well, you can you can add one new thing in, maybe just like, I think one of the easy ones is the energy flames around the moons.
Yep.
These guys.
Mm-hmm.
I think that's kind of one of the easy ones. And I have 3 colors that I use. I have one for when I'm super fatigued and I just need to rest, which usually comes during my period. And then I have one that is light. That's my dark blue. My light blue is when I'm feeling clear and okay, but I'm not feeling like 100%. And then I have orange, which is when I just feel like a rock star. So I use those 3 colors. And I mean, I do have one that's when I'm like something is super, super wrong, but I actually haven't used it in this new book yet. So that was from last year when we were just experimenting with the whole thing. So it just seems like an easy one to do, like what are the things that you most often encounter? Feeling really awesome and feeling really tired. And, maybe you need a shade in the middle there to sort of like say, well, I'm not feeling awesome, but I'm not feeling like total crap either. So what's my middle ground? And that's a pretty easy one to start with.
Okay. Sounds good.
Yeah. And then you can also see like if the phases of the moon influence that for you at all. Like I really noticed that with this eclipse, even during the eclipse, even though that was really when I should have been higher in my energy field for the cycle, I was still kind of like in that light blue, mellow mood energy level. And it was just interesting to see how that moon affected my energy, even though in my menstrual cycle, I should have been in like a bright orange part of my energy levels.
Okay, yep. Well, I know in the group you were talking about lunarception.
Mm-hmm.
So you had suggested that. So I tried that last month. Oh, that was hard. I don't sleep with any lights on in my room. So that was a major, not something I enjoyed, but I have to do it again this month because I'm still not on track. I went from 21 days 1 month to 29 the next.
Got it. What light did you use?
Pardon?
What kind of light did you use?
It was a blue, I had my air conditioning on and it has a blue light that comes off of it.
Mm-hmm.
And it's sort of above my bed.
Mm-hmm.
So very blue.
Try something more orange or red, because the blue activates the melatonin receptors, or well, it activates your daylight receptors, like your body thinks it's during the day. But so maybe try something with a little red light to it, like a little salt lamp, or even one of those battery candles, you know, like the little tea lights, but they're electric ones.
Yeah, but my thinking on that was that is not the light that the moon gives off, because I actually have red, my night lamp has a red light, and I have tea lights in here. I was like, salt lamp, tea light candles and things.
Mm-hmm.
But trying to mimic the moon, that's much more of a blue light than it is.
It's true.
Red light.
No,
so
that's very true.
Oh, my melatonin is not hitting. I was wearing my glasses earlier, and yeah.
Yeah, no, that's very true. That's very true. But it is hard to sleep like that. And I have personally found the compromise to be the salt lamp so that I can actually decompress and get some rest, but also kind of keep that light thing going. And for me, even that little bit of light from the salt lamp is enough to really keep me in that full moon energy. So you know, it's a good idea. And I love the idea that you're using, but it might be too strong.
Yeah, I think I might I might try what you suggested this time around.
You can give it a shot, you know, and see how it feels and see how it works. And just, you know that what works for you is what works for you. And that is all that matters.
Cool.
Yeah. Awesome. Anything else that you've got?
I don't know, just on the forum, I mean, I don't have any children, but just a few people that were posting, I think it was yesterday, about their daughters having their first menstrual cycles.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know if you have one, but maybe you could set a bunch of video up or something that could just be, they could send their daughters to have a bit of a more realistic look. Or
yeah, we actually I'm putting together a summit, and there's going to be one woman who's going to talk to us about how to actually have conversations with your kids. And there's another one who is going to be sharing menarche rituals with us. So they're going to get some awesome content here in a couple of months. It's just recording the interviews and getting it all together. So they'll definitely have some good content pretty soon.
Excellent.
Yeah. Yeah, I'm just making sure that those two speakers are confirmed before I make that announcement on the post. I don't want to get anyone excited and then have to be like, nope, sorry, big fat lie. But yeah, the summit's going to be good. The summit's going to be lots of really awesome content for women. So, and there's going to be a few for kids too. So I think it'll be really great for just women in general, even men. I mean, I hope some guys watch it and learn some things.
Okay, I think that's what I brought today.
Awesome. Thank you so much. I'm so glad you did. That's
Well,
fantastic.
thank you for your time. That was very interesting. I knew some of it, but the layers that you added on today with the history, very interesting.
Yeah, I could go on and on and on for days about that. So I just cut myself off. Well, thank you so much for coming and for showing up and for contributing. I really appreciate that.
Well, I'm actually homesick today, so it was like the perfect time.
Oh, yes, perfect. Thank you. All right. If anyone else would like to share, you are welcome to. Otherwise, I will wrap this up.
I had a couple of quick questions.
Yeah, please hit me.
So one, maybe simpler question about the charting. I was wondering, because I'm also very new to it, and I'm just completing my first month using it.
Nice.
And I've never done the body temperature measuring before, and I was wondering how much you thought that was a priority to start integrating into my observations.
I find it really fascinating. Personally, I have a very analytical mind, so I think it's just kind of a fascinating observation process. It can tell you a lot about your body. In fact, tracking your basal body temperature can tell you more than just if you ovulated or not. It can tell you if your thyroid's functioning properly. It can tell you if you're fighting an infection you might not even know is there. It can tell you how your body is doing on a couple of different levels outside of even just menstruating, which is something that I like to remind wise women. You know, after their fertile years, it's still a good thing to do because you can still keep track of what's going on in your body through it. So I think it's kind of an important one, though it's not critical, you know, and it might not be the place to start. It's something that does take a little getting used to because you have to wake up at the same time to do it. But, you know, at the end of the day, if you skip the weekends or something, that's not the end of the world. It's, you know, start with where you are. And like I skipped a couple of days in the last week because I have been sick and not feeling well. And my alarm went off and I was like, no, I can't just do anything right now. And I just went back to sleep. So I got sick and it was the 2 days before my period, which I already sleep like a good solid 9.5 hours during. So I was like not doing it. But it's a really important thing. I have some tricks to doing it so that it's less painful to do. One is to get a thermometer that remembers your temperature. So like I did do it this morning because I hadn't done it in a couple of days. So what you do is you keep the thermometer next to you, but then when your alarm goes off, you just roll over, stick it in your mouth, and you can go back to sleep. And then the thermometer it'll do its thing, and then you can turn it off. And then when you do actually wake up, you can recall your last temperature. So I find that to be a nice little cheat.
So does it matter that much if you record it at a time that's like an hour off between one day and the next?
Well, you'll notice a difference in temperature between one day and the next. In fact, I had a half an hour difference in my temperature this week, and it was 0.6 difference with that, just half an hour difference in sleep. So you could see kind of a big difference depending on what time you normally wake up and that kind of thing. So it does help to keep it at the same time. And in fact, I probably wouldn't even suggest doing it like if you miss that first round because it's inconclusive data, as they say.
Interesting.
Yeah, that's why the whole like doing it at the same time every day is something that like no matter where you're looking at the information, they're always harping about it being at the same time every day.
Mm-hmm.
And before you even sit up, so like next to the alarm is a good place to just stash that thermometer.
Cool. Okay. I'd like to try it out.
Yeah, go for it. It's a good one. And, you know, like I said, it doesn't have to be every day. Just, you know, get started.
Cool.
Awesome.
Do you have time for one unrelated question?
Yeah, hit me.
Okay. I was wondering if you had any advice so I'm sort of new to, looking at ways to balance my own hormones through diet, through looking at where there are other endocrine disruptors in my life, and I'm already seeing such a huge impact. But I'm not really sure how to talk to other people about it without it kind of comes across as like scare tactics. Like everything is like everything in your life is sending your hormones out of whack. So I was wondering if you had any advice on how to share this information in an empowering way.
Yeah, well, you're not wrong. Everything in life is negatively affecting our endocrine system.
I'm beginning to realize that.
Yeah, no, you're not wrong. You're not wrong about that. It's true. To do it from an empowering standpoint is hard. You're totally right about that. That is kind of a hard thing to do. You just really have to add things, not subtract for people. So when I work with clients one-on-one, we start by adding things. We don't subtract things. And like one of my friends who had all Teflon pans, like nonstick pans, I got her cast iron skillet one year for her birthday. And I was just like, this is great. It adds iron into your diet. As women, we tend to be low on iron. So like make some spaghetti sauce in here because the tomatoes will absorb the iron, or like make some good ground chili or something. Like just make some good food in this cast iron. The more you love it, the better it'll be. And it's one of the only pans she uses now is that cast iron skillet. So I never even had to say stop using the Teflon. It was just like the cast iron won in the cooking field after a while of using it. And like I would come over and cook in it and like kind of get her comfortable with how cast iron works. And the Teflon pans just sort of fell away. So, do that little magic of adding things in, and it's a lot less scary than taking things away from people. Yeah.
Cool.
Oh, and Liesl, I love cooking in cast iron. Yeah, me too. Cast iron is my favorite. My favorite. Although I did make turmeric milk in a glass pot this week, and I do get a little enamored with my glass pots. Yeah, and it's hard to do. I mean, it's hard to take things like bleach cleaners away from people and tell them that, like a lavender or a tea tree oil cleaner is going to make the same difference, actually be better. But it's true. I know. And it's hard to do, which is why I just kind of start with one thing and do one little substitution, and it'll trickle over and it'll grow for sure. Yeah. But one thing at a time.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Thank you. And thank you for all of your wisdom.
Anytime. Hey, I've spent my whole life doing this stuff, so I feel like it's good to get it out of my brain and into some other people's.
Cool.
Hi, Liesl. Hi, Lana. It's nice to see you. We're kind of in the question and answer phase of the Red Tent. So if either of you have any questions or if you'd like to share any stories with us, you are welcome to. And I see, Liesl, you're only stopping in for a moment. Well, I'm glad that you stopped in even for a moment. Thank you. Liesl is one of the women who's doing the Happy Hormone Reset with me this month, and is awesome and a rock star, and has done it a few times before, and was commenting today in the group that it's much easier this time. So it's nice to see you here as well, because it is a lot easier after you've done it once or twice, huh? Cool. Okay, I'm going to guess from, so much easier. It really is so much easier after you do it a few times. Okay, so I'm gonna guess that we are out of questions, and that's perfectly fine. Thank you guys so much for joining me and being here for my inaugural Red Tent. And I will be doing it again next month. In fact, I'll be updating our event for next month's date and time, and I'll send out an email as well with that link. So I hope to see you guys again next month when we do this. It will be a day before, though, because I will be traveling on Thursday next month. So let's just take a second, and I want to leave you with the questions that I asked earlier in the call. And one of them in particular that I think is a really good one is, what must die in me in order for me to love? So I love for you guys to just take a little bit of time and sit with that question and think about what could you release to make room for love. There's a Tibetan prayer, Rumi, maybe it's from Rumi. It's a prayer from in that general area that says, allow my heart to break allow my heart to break so that I can rebuild a bigger room for love. Something to that effect. And I love the idea of we are the life, death, life cycle, right? So things have to go in order to make space. And so I'd love to leave you guys with that thought. What can you release to make some more room for love in your lives? And thank you so much for being here. I love you all from the bottom of my womb to yours. I hope to see you guys in the group and see you soon. Thank you.